class. And today we have an exciting new lens to have a look at. It is what I think is the first autofocus lens from Brightin Star, a up-and-coming third-party manufacturer for Sony and other mirrorless cameras. It is their new 50mm f1.4 for APS-C. This comes out on a variety of mounts, but I'm testing out the Sony one. As always, going through all the categories, keep this methodical, starting with the build quality. If you look closely at this, we have an all-metal design. There's a nice gunmetal back bayonet on this. Very nice color. You can see I've scuffed off some of the paint on the focus wheel here. Our lens hood feels pretty decent, and it's a locking design, which is surprising for a cheaper lens like this. So that's not going to fall off by accident very easily. Our lens cap is pretty typical generic lens cap, but it's not a bad one. It's nice. Come around on the back here, we have a USB port for firmware updates. As far as I know, there hasn't been one yet. We don't have a weather sealing gasket, but it fits pretty nicely against the back of the camera. The lens itself is not considered to be weather sealed. However, I have shot it in the rain without issue. If we look on the front here, we have a 58mm filter thread, which is a fairly common size. It looks like it has an aperture ring here, but it's not. It's just a knurled ring around the inner part of the body here, which is fine by me. I am not very big on having aperture rings on lenses that aren't specifically video focused. Got a nice weight to it. No matter how hard you squeeze this focus ring, it is not going to lock up on you. Very nice, solid, well-considered design. Knurling feels very nice. It's going to be an 8.5 out of 10 for build quality. Well done, but not unexpected. All of Brightin Star's lenses are pretty solid. Handling and usability. This is an f1.4 lens, so it's a little bit hefty, but I believe that it is about as compact as it's going to get. There are no buttons on the body here, no AF/MF, no custom function buttons, but it's nice and tight and small. It fits in nicely on an APS-C camera body and even fits nicely on the full frame bodies. Very easy to mount and dismount, especially given that there is this knurled ring around the edge here that gets a nice grip to it. Most of the body is the focus ring. It is well balanced. It's not super front heavy. If anything, it's just a tiny bit back heavy, which is nice, so it doesn't feel crazy heavy on the camera. In usability, when you bring this into Lightroom or Capture One, this actually fakes the ID of the Sony 50mm 1.8, which is unfortunate because that means that it's not going to automatically apply the relevant lens profiles. It's going to try to put the ones from the Sony lens on it. But overall, for handling and usability, nice and easy. Missing some bells and whistles though, it's an 8 out of 10. Image quality.
Close all the curtains. Stay on the phone. We are the monsters holding you still.
As you can see, the images can be very sharp, even wide open. It is more than usable at f1.4. Stomping it down, it's incredibly sharp. Flare resistance is surprisingly good, but not amazing. Chromatic aberration can be found if you're looking for it, but even wide open, it is surprisingly well controlled for a lens of this class. Now, that's going to be apparent why later on. This isn't exactly a cheapy nifty 50 going on here. Colors appear natural, although not perfect at all times. It still looks quite nice. Significantly less chromatic aberration than, say, the Sony Zeiss 55 1.8, which is a lens that is really showing its age these days, especially given that its price point has only gone up, which is wild. I have to give this an image quality of 8 out of 10. It is solid. Moving on to image character, and that's where I expect to do well with these third-party lenses. They can afford to be a little bit riskier, and even often having cheaper optical designs result in them having more interesting image character. Being an f1.4 lens, this does have very creamy, non-distracting backgrounds. The bokeh is nice and smooth. It doesn't get too swirly. It doesn't really football much while you're in APS-C mode, but if you shoot this in full frame mode, however, you're going to see a lot of weird stuff around the edges, but that's not the lens's fault. That's just me deciding to do weird things with the lens, because obviously it's not designed to be shot in that configuration. But even so, it has a fairly wide image circle, so if you choose to shoot it on a full frame camera, you can get a little more bang for your buck that way and crop it yourself and get more out of it than you would in APS-C mode. Now, when you stop it down, the aperture blades cut in pretty quick. And the sun stars are not terribly interesting. The flares are nice, but again, not terribly interesting. Overall, it is just a classic portrait lens image character. It's going to give you what you expect, nice and creamy and smooth. It's an 8 out of 10 for image character. Focus performance, and this one I kind of went back and forth on. It's not the fastest, it's pretty quiet. Unlike some third-party lenses, it will allow you to focus around the edges of the frame. A lot of third-party autofocus lenses only focus in the center. This one goes all the way around, but with diminishing results. So if you don't have perfect lighting, then you're going to have a really hard time focusing outside of the center third of the frame. When you do have good lighting, good contrast, it does well in those instances. Tracking subjects, moving subjects, especially in low light, it struggles with that. And when you're shooting wide open, sometimes it misses just ever so slightly and you're wondering, oh, is this lens soft or did it just not hit focus? It's mostly that it just slightly misses focus when it's super wide open. So overall, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 for focus performance. It is definitely reliable enough for use, but it is not perfect. Moving on to value. This lens comes in at $250, which honestly was a little bit more than I expected, because let's look at the competition. There is the Yongnuo 51.8, which I have reviewed, which was a surprisingly sharp performer, but very cheap plastic design, and they obviously saved some money there. That's $135. There's the Mikey 55 1.4, also APS-C, $200. The Viltrox 56 1.4, $280, just a little bit more. I really liked that lens though. And there's a TT Artisan autofocus 56 1.8 for $160. And obviously there are other lenses that are more expensive, like first-party lenses, Sirui, Chukina, and the classic Sigma 56 1.4 that's $480. Among the value-priced lenses, this doesn't fare well. When you take absolutely everything into consideration, it is not that expensive. So I'm going to give this, again, another 8 out of 10. Kind of a trend for this lens. So overall, that's going to give us an 80%. Let's have a look at our score chart and see how that holds up. Very interestingly, also scoring 80% on our chart is the Sony 55 1.8 and the Yongnuo 51.8. This appears to be a little carve out for 50mm lenses. Is this ultimately a worse lens or better lens than the 55 1.8? Well, no, but like I said, this is showing its age, and this comes in at well over $1,000 where I am. With tax, if I were to buy this new today, it would be $1,300. That's nuts. So it'd lose a lot of the points there. You can decide for yourself. You've seen the image samples. There are links down in the description if you want to pick something up to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. Well, until next time, let's go take some very creamy photos.